One day, someone you once led may walk up to you and say, "You probably don't remember me." What happens next is your true leadership legacy. This week on the next interview, Jim Huling shares why great leaders don't just build successful organizations. They build people who continue multiplying long after they're gone.
Welcome to the second interview, the second half of the interview with Jim Huling. In episode 1, we talked about artificial intelligence and the relationship it develops with people or doesn't develop with people, actually. In this second half of the interview, the conversation with Jim extends, and we're going to talk about recognition versus value. We're going to talk about the goal of leadership and the fact that the goal of leadership is multiplication. Why autonomy creates better organizations. And we're going to take a little conversation around Viktor Frankl. If you don't know who Viktor Frankl is, we're going to expose you to some concepts from him. And we're going to give you a little glimpse into Jim's next book. So check out the interview. I hope that you enjoy it. This is part 2 of my interview with Jim Huling. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast, Jim, and thank you for listening to this episode today. Now let's get started.
Yes, that's it. And it doesn't work the same way with skills. No. Skills are great. Teach everybody all the skills you have, how to run a one-on-one, how to delegate, how to make big decisions. Yes, do all that. Yeah. But don't miss the thing that matters most, which is that inner core of what makes a person a great leader. Don't miss that. Don't miss the chance to teach that while you're so busy making them high performers and highly productive. If you do, you'll get great results for now, but anybody who follows you won't get that same multiplier effect because you didn't leave them with the gifts that would have taken them to that place. And that's my real message, I think, in so much of this is let's just do both. Let's don't myopically focus on performance. Let's focus on the individual and how we're enabling them to become the very best version of themselves that we can.
And I really love that because as you were talking about that, I was thinking through, there's a, so I mentioned I got 2 books in my hand, right? I got a red one, which is Lead with Confidence, and I got another one here that says 4 Disciplines of Execution. And I've executed.
Beautiful.
I've executed the 4 Disciplines book, goodness gracious, a good dozen, 15, 20 times in organizations, including in my teams. But one of the things that comes out of that, and I love that the corollary that you from your statement there, Jim, which is, there is an importance to there's Drucker. We got to measure because we got to know where we are. Because ultimately there is an outcome. Mm-hmm. We're turning something up or turning something. There's only 3 measures, right? We're turning something down, we're leaving it alone, or we're turning it up. There's no more than, I would love to have more measures. That's all there is in the business world. That's generally from a measure perspective, what you're focused on. From a people perspective, you're seeking that multiplier, which is clarity, which is what connects them to it. What connects, which you talk about? Am I doing work that matters? That's a soulful, spiritual connection.
That's right.
Because it may matter to you. It may matter to the organization. We love talking about this a lot. Is when you tell somebody, what matters to me today is turning our revenue up by 10%. Well, it doesn't. That doesn't. There's a matter, but that doesn't.
And it may be, right? For that individual at that moment, it may be. But I think you're really zeroed in on the target because producing results is the price of entry to the arena where you get to change the lives of people. Mm-hmm. It's literally producing results is not the end game. It's like the ticket to get in the ball game. Where the game is really being played is in the shaping of lives and careers and individuals reaching their greatest potential. That's the real game. And listen, it's a cliche, but you don't have to think about this more than 16 seconds to say, hey, can I remember any of my results? I mean, I ran a company for 11 years and produced record producing results. I can't remember one of them. Not even one, right? But what year was it? The margin? Was it the profit? Was it EBITDA? But you talk about the people, the small group of people that I can literally say with some confidence, I made a difference in their lives. I remember their faces. I remember their names. I remember the names of their children. I remember the circumstances. I remember what we learned and did together. And to this day, I could pick up the phone probably and call any one of them and say, hey, how's it
Yes.
going? So the difference is between these metrics. There's nothing wrong with metrics, but they are the price of entry that enables you to do work that lasts possibly forever, which is the thing we're talking about with
I
people.
love that. So leaders, as you listen to that, hit rewind by about 60 seconds and go back to that, because that's such an important point, Jim. The metrics, they are the price of entry. Right? When you're in the arena and as a leader, and the arena can be, like as we mentioned earlier, it's family, friends, work, church. When you're in the arena, right,
Sure.
it is in that moment, is that place where you become a multiplier. You're on the hook to do that. I believe deeply that it is a responsibility of the leader to be the multiplier. You sign up for that.
Absolutely. In fact, of all the things we are allowed to complain about, this is
No.
not one, because we knew that we signed up, right? And you and I share this background. There's an old story about a king that made three investments, gave the same investment to three different people, and
Yeah.
one came back having totally preserved what they were given but not increased it. One came back with a small incremental increase and probably too much hubris about it, and one came back with a dramatic multiplied effect. All three given the same thing. And I think it's an ancient story, but it still has applicability today. There's going to come some moment, Dolan, for you and I, and for everybody else. And I don't know what form it takes, and I'm not pushing any particular version of anybody's belief system at all. But I'm just saying it makes sense to me that if we are given amazing gifts, amazing opportunities, there will be a point somehow, somewhere, where somebody says, hey, what'd you do with all the stuff we gave you?
Sure.
Did you multiply it? Did you invest it? Did you expand it? And we're not going to want to say, oh, I kept it exactly the way it was. We're going to want to say, look at what I was able to do with the gifts I was given, with the opportunities I was given, with the friendships and relationships I was given. Look at the life I created with what I was given. That's what we're going to want to say. Well, we can't wait until the very last moment to begin.
No.
We can't. We won't have time to do it, right?
No.
So I don't know. I don't know any better way to say this, but I'll stop pontificating. I think I am too much. But I don't know why we're not running down the road like with our hair on fire, that I've got to do something that matters. I got to find something that matters. I've got to be somebody who matters, who makes a difference, who helps the people around me, who lifts them up, who teaches what I know and learns from them what they know. Why are we not running for that objective? Because in the blink of an eye, our time is done, and we're going to wish we had done all those things.
Yeah, we are merely a blink. We are merely the blink. Yeah. Very.
Well, look at you and me. Here we have careers. You put them together, I guess it's 100-something years of leadership experience together. You should be flattered that I kept it to 100.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But didn't it go by? Didn't it go by?
Similarly, yeah. And it's funny. There's when I do the exercise of putting my book together, it was not that the details of the accomplishment evaded me. Was it the things about margin or revenue? Do I know I did? Yes. Do I know we did? We set, yes. Records were set, and there were losses and wins and stuff, but the faces and names and the stories behind the faces and names are what live on throughout all of the things that we do. It's those relationships that we build.
That's right. And I'll tell you honestly right now, I think in your book, you hammer home things that every leader needs to know. Everybody needs to buy this book. You just got to trust me and go buy it and come back and tell us if you want your money back. We'll have a dialogue, but you're not going to regret making this purchase. And one of the things you hit so beautifully in this book is you say the goal of leadership is multiplication. Now, you condensed in that one phrase. It just took me like 7 minutes of explanation in my Southern accent to express that very thing, right? But you said it perfectly. That's it. The goal, multiplication of talent, multiplication of ability, multiplication of passion, of exuberance, of purpose, of mission. Yes, the mandate on every single leader is multiplication. I've never seen anybody write that. You wrote it in your book, and I think it's one of the most powerful. That section, in fact, is my favorite in the whole book. I shouldn't give this away. In my whole book, that section is my favorite section. The goal of leadership is multiplication.
Thank you. My favorite section is the story I tell about standing at the urinal, but that's a different story. Anyway, we won't get into that. Buy the book, you'll see the story. But you know, it's funny, Jim, because I think one of the things that leaders, there is that tendency to, and I was, you know, I'll put my hand up in the air, young leader, and I'm stepping in, and I'm in my early 30s, and I'm president of an international consulting company, and I'm doing stuff with Gary Kasparov in Russia, and we're doing stuff that's off the hook, right? Way back in the early days when we had to use baling wire and duct tape to connect computers together, and it was at times that complaint about, I'm in this role, and why is this happening? And it is, I love your statement about, you know, we sign up for that. That's at the bottom of the complaint. I signed the deal that said, this is what I'm coming in here for to go do. And I'm on the hook, and you have to accept that, step into it, and live it, and live that.
Mm-hmm. But so much depends, I think, and I know you agree with this, on how you do that. You know, yes, you're right. 1,000 times over, what you just said is absolutely right. Everybody should replay that and write it down. But don't forget that there's a million ways to do the how.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, as I'm now only coaching people at the top, and not exclusively, I'm happy to coach a vice president or something. I don't mean to sound so exclusive. But at the top of organizations, those are the only people I'm working with right now. And I see so many people that out of a heartfelt desire to help the team succeed, they end up implementing a model, though, that I call a genius with 1,000 helpers. In other words, you get in that mode of, go do this. No, if you want to solve that, go solve it. Yeah, here's what I would do if I were you. Yeah, 3 things I don't want you to forget. You go do this. Yeah, you go do that. And my way of doing this is always, when you do that, you may be very efficient in the moment. You may get a whole lot of flurry of activity going and problems getting solved. And just for a moment, people say, wow, this Dolan, he really knows what to tell us to do, you know? But over time, that builds a dependency in the people you lead, that whenever they have a problem they can't solve, they come to you. Well, now the more you do that, the more pressure is on you, the more your life is simply like a vending machine for solutions to problems. But worst of all, the weaker the people are that you're leading. It's like we said earlier about AI. They're not building the muscle of solving the problem themselves. They have a trained reliance on you, which makes them weaker rather than stronger. So I think in your stories, particularly in your autonomy chapter that you have, I think you really hit to the heart of this, that if we don't get intentional. For example, a person comes to my office and says, gosh, Jim, you know, we've got this problem with this market channel. One of our vendors is we don't know what we're going to do. What I need to learn to do is to say, I know you can solve that. And I know you have the people you need to solve it. And if you come to a place where you cannot solve it, I will always be here to help you. But I think that's yours to solve.
Yeah.
Now, it's 1 in 1,000 leaders that will say that. Because the temptation is to say, oh, yeah, I've done this a million times. Let me tell you, do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you'll be fine. They look at us like we are from Mount Olympus, like where did that knowledge come from? We feel really good in that moment. You know, we feel better about ourselves. And so the next time it comes around, oh my gosh, we just do it again. You know? Except it's the single worst thing we could do. We're building followers, not leaders. And we end up, you know, we got 1 genius and 1,000 helpers. And what's going to happen to the company when the genius falters or when the genius retires? You know, what are we going to do? So for every reason we've just said, this autonomy drive that you talk about so much in the book, I think that's the new mantra for 2026. We've got to be intentional about building autonomy into the capabilities of the people that we're leading, or else we're not really serving them. We're just using them, to get something done.
And I agree. I love it's one of I love talking about autonomy, and autonomy is hard. I mean, it's hard because we have the perception I know the answer. I don't know all the context because you lived the problem. So that when you explain the problem, the challenge to me, I don't have all of the context. You're going to give me enough context so that I can, because there's probably 15, 20 things I don't know, but I'm going to answer it. And I'm going to tell you what to go do without understanding context. And
sorry, it's really just like ChatGPT, isn't it? When you give it a certain prompt, so if you give it the wrong prompt, you're going to get the wrong answer, but you can't just say, "Oh, it must be right." Well, Dolan's the one that said this, yes, but did Dolan know all the facts? Did he understand the context? Did you give him a chance to give you a robust answer? No, it was a vending machine, and I put a quarter in his mouth and pulled the lever, and I expected an answer to pop out. And that's what I got, right? Well, like you say, I have great empathy for this, Dolan. For a leader to break this cycle, we have to be willing to give up some of the perceived power we are thought to have. We have to give up some of that if we want people to grow. We can't be the one that solves everything.
I love that. That's part of your obligation as a multiplier, and it is to step back. It is not. I think you probably experienced this with the leaders that you coach. I think there's sometimes the perception that when I step back in that moment, I'm relinquishing control. When neither one of those words should have been in the conversation probably to start with, because there's nothing to relinquish and you're not controlling it.
You never are.
You might think you are, but you'll have a surprise because you're not going to do either. But it is that moment where you do have that opportunity. One of my favorite mentors in a podcast that we did in March of 2025. Some guy named Jim Huling. We were in that podcast. One of the things that you mentioned in that was that take a breath moment.
Oh yeah.
Which is
I wish I had the copyright on take a breath, because isn't that powerful? For those of you that are driving your car or eating a cheeseburger, this really comes from an appreciation Dolan and I both have from the heart over the work of Viktor Frankl. Who said so many things. If we had time, we should do a full podcast just on things he said. It would change all of our lives. But one of the ones that I love, and I am imperfect but still striving for, is he said, between stimulus and response, there is always a space. Full stop. Between stimulus and response, there is always a space. And in that space, we choose who we will become. Well, when we're driving down the road and somebody cuts us off, we don't feel like there's a space. We feel like it was instantaneous. We gave them a visual illustration of what we think their IQ was, or we say the wrong thing, or we cut somebody's off in a meeting or in some kind of a discussion. If we just pause for a minute, so you would not believe, although you would be heartened, Dolan, at the senior executives. These are people with multi-billion-dollar budgets, who, after we slow down and in the privacy and safety of an executive coaching session, we can practice taking a breath. Pause before we speak. I mean, the oldest advice in the world is transformational. In fact, I've never had anybody who learned the technique and tried it, who ever went back, who ever said, you know what, that pause, that's not valuable. Never once. I've probably taught this to 1,000 people. Never once has anybody said, Jim, you taught me some good stuff, but that one just wasn't one of the best. Everybody comes back and says, this changed my life. My temper problem went away when I took a breath before I spoke. My relationship issues went away when I just took a breath and remembered how important this person is I'm talking to before I took an action, or hundreds and hundreds of examples. So Viktor Frankl, a nod from Dolan and Jim today. We are still here teaching your principles today, and they still have the power to change lives. And that's exactly what you're focused on.
So powerful, and which is a reminder. And thank you for that, Jim, because I love that quote. Just love that quote. And it's one of the things that leaders study: transformational wisdom. Study Troward, study Frankl, study, go learn, study Bob Proctor, study, learn, go, because it is not about. We're grateful, and I threw him under the bus earlier, Mr. Drucker. Love Peter Drucker to death. Love JNT. Love Deming. Love all of it. But study transformation. Learn the principles of transformation. It will change you as a leader. It will turn you into a multiplier. And it's so funny, because as you were saying that, I had to stop and think. That's one of my favorite lessons with leaders is taking a breath. I was on an investor's call yesterday, and with one of my clients as just a fly on the wall, in the room, and that didn't happen on the call. The individual, that, without mentioning any details, because it had to do with investments, and there were 14 other investors on the call along with this, and the CEO and CTO were on, and there was a question that came up, and there was a compelling moment to answer immediately, without the rule of, first of all, say thank you for the question. Thank you for bringing this to me. I'm grateful that you give me an opportunity. Thank you for this, right? And then taking that breath before you step through the door. And I think it's a hard lesson for leaders to know that you are not obligated to have a split-second answer.
That's right. That's right. Nor are you obligated to be right all the time, nor are you obligated to be confident all the time, wise, all-knowing, all these old ideas about. You started our conversation today with never let them see you sweat. It's an old idea. We need to put that in the trash can. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody say in my life. Of course you're going to sweat. And in today's world, if people see you sweat, or as a leader, if you have a moment to say, I want to share with all of you that I'm as concerned as you are about this problem. I'm as sensitive to the people who are going to be impacted as you are. I really care about this as you do. If you can't say those kinds of things today, you can't really be in leadership, because we've evolved to the point where we want people who are real, not cardboard cutouts of what a leader should look like. And the strange thing is, the more you are a real person as a leader, the more you will find you're endeared to people from that. They trust you more. They are willing to join your cause more, give more effort, because they find you to be somebody they think they can believe in. And that's the key that turns the lock. It's not having a pizza party, or putting up a bunch of banners, or buying T-shirts with the logo on them, or all the things we try to do. It's this ability to make a genuine human connection with the people you lead, without abdicating your role as the leader in any way. In fact, maybe embodying the role of the leader in the most powerful way, by showing them that you're a human being just like they are, and together we're going to solve this thing and get through it, and that you are someone that can be trusted. You can do those things, you'll find a group of people that will follow you.
I love that statement, because there's a lot of important information. Again, leaders, go back, rewind, go back, listen at one speed, get your pencil and paper, write it down. But if you're not driving, and if you're driving, please don't take your hands off the wheel. Just make a mental note. You got to go listen again. But the key thing with that, I think, that you're talking about in there, Jim, that's incredibly powerful, is that word together. And I think that's a lesson as a leader, to be humble. Leadership. There's concepts around servant leaderships, and there's some misconceptions, if that's a word, around what servant leadership really is. But from a leader is to be humble enough to say, I'm not quite sure of that answer, but I believe, which now connects to me. Now I believe, together we're going to figure this out.
right.
which opens.
That's right.
Now it's
Exactly right.
possibility. Now it's imagination. Or you can rely on, go look it up in ChatGPT and tell me what it is. Bring me 26 pages and
That's right. That's right. They basically all say
yeah,
the same thing. I think if I don't know if you would have let me put a wrapper
yeah,
around this, but but I love to be able to say in this, as it always is with you, this amazing conversation, that I think the ultimate objective of every leader is to build something that will outlast them. If you're only building something to get a mark on a paper for now and not worried about the future, you're really shortchanging everybody who follows you. So think about it that way. Your real goal is to build something that will outlast you. Well, how can you do that? There's only one way, because everything else
yes,
changes. So the only way you can do that is through the growth of the people. Yeah, Dolan, I used to say this as a consultant, and I actually was asked to not say it anymore because it was too challenging to my clients. Although I offer that with great humor and love for my clients. Is that if you aren't going to build something that will outlast you, why are we paying you to build it?
yes,
How can you be the right person if you're not building something? If you're building something that relies wholly or exclusively on you, you have shortchanged
yeah,
all of us, right? So the ultimate metric, if I can be grandiose for just a second, the ultimate metric of leadership success, I think, everybody's free to agree or disagree, of course, I think, is the growth of the people who follow you. The only way to measure the true success of a leader is to what extent did the people who followed me grow under my leadership. And if you're really focused on that metric, if that's where your guidance system is taking you, you almost cannot lose. Provided that you act with integrity and you hold yourself to a set of values and that you're a
right,
decent human being. Outside of that, you really can't lose with this, because every time a person grows, your organization gets better. Every time a person develops a new skill, your whole team is better. Every time they have more confidence in themselves, your whole group just went up a level, and you didn't do anything but help
yes.
the individual. So the more you do that, you come right back to, but in this fabulous book, the multiplier factor is really what it's
Yeah,
all about.
and thank you for that. It's what you're talking about is so important, and I think it is a it is a I won't mean by age. A senior leader understands the law, the rule. It is a I believe, Jim, it is an immutable law in business. If you take care of your people, the outcomes that you pursue, other than constraints or conditions which are external to your world, the outcomes that you are
That's right.
pursuing will occur.
That's right. I mean, how does it get simpler than that? And if you look back at some of the world's greatest companies, now, not the ones that won Best Place to Work last
Yeah,
year, but the ones that have won it every year for 10 or
right.
20 years, they live by some version of, we take care of our people and our people take care of our
Yes.
business. Some version of that. Peel back the layers on any great company. I promise you this is true. Who has endured the test of time? You'll find some version of that is at the core. We take care of these people and they take care of our business. And I won't name any names because I don't necessarily have permission, but all the great companies in the world live by a version of that
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
belief.
They continue, and it's not enduring. They continue to thrive, which
Which shouldn't sound like a
no,
mystery, should
I
it?
know. That's why we both kind of chuckle. It's kind of like, this is, it harkens to
Yeah,
saying it is not that hard. There are complexities, but at the end of the day,
that's right.
the governing principles of what leadership is built around, what you talk about with the people you coach, and your successes across the body of your
Yeah,
career, and your book around the disciplines of execution, those things are all big fundamentals, things that we seek in our life. One of my
that's
favorite
right.
things. I want to talk a moment about your book, and I want to talk about your new book. And because
Mm,
we're way past this, this is probably going to be a two-parter. So, but one of my favorite things about your book, and is in your book, there is a section at the front marked by this orange tab, right, that talks about what it is. right? And then there's a section that talks about applying it. Now, how to apply it, right? And it's not you don't eat the elephant all at once, with just listeners. So as you're applying it. But one of the things that I loved about this approach with my team is it fell into the way I felt about leadership. Not to couch, I want to couch this as a leadership book, not a go-do book. But one of the things that came out of this was the granting and willingness to create clarity. And when you grant that permission to create clarity within the body of an organization, you create confidence. Confidence creates autonomy.
Right.
Autonomy creates trust, creates accountability. So there's a waterfall effect that goes from that way. So leaders, it'll be in the show notes. Go pick up a copy of the book, and when you pick it up, do it even in your own life. I use this in my life. This is part of it is my life. So
what a great value chain you just articulated too. And you know what I love about what you just said is, and I would say this in the same kind of language, that it's not complicated, but it's also not easy. Right. So that's the good thing to remember. Nobody's saying add water and stir and you have a magical team who does things you couldn't believe. It doesn't work that way. It's not complicated, but it's not easy, right? It's simple. It's just not easy to do. We used to say about the disciplines all the time. The 4 disciplines are so easy to understand. You could write them on a napkin at lunch and keep the sandwich. There's not anything to it, right? But it's the doing of them that's hard. The doing of the 4 disciplines is what's hard, and that's why such amazing results come when you do it. Same thing is true about leadership. These principles we've been talking, and you can hear the passion in our voices about it. We're speaking like 2 people who are making sure our message gets across before we're done. And I love that. I hope this podcast will last a long time in that regard, is that it really matters. It really matters to get this right. And someday, somewhere, you're going to be in a restaurant, you're going to cross paths with somebody, and they're going to say, "Hey, Dolan, you don't remember me, but I used to work for you." And in that moment, your whole world's going to freeze frame. Everything's going to stop. Every waiter carrying a plate is going to stop what they're doing, because everybody's going to be waiting to hear, figuratively speaking, what it is you remember about your leadership. And I can only promise you this as an older guy, what you're going to wish is that you had been the leader you could have been. You knew you should have been, you wanted to be. You became that leader despite the odds, and you were willing to do the kinds of things we've talked about today. If you do that, every time you hear those words, "You don't remember me," it'll be a happy moment in your life rather than something that you dread.
I'm so glad you mentioned. I'm sorry. I was going to I'll steal a moment from the podcast. This is your podcast, not my podcast. But so I'm going to steal a moment from the podcast. I'm going to reach over to my printer. So I'm going to leave frame for a second. And I have in my hand. So yesterday, I've not told anybody this. Yesterday morning, I got an email in my personal email. And I looked at it and I thought, I remember the name vaguely. And in that email was attached a PDF of a certificate of a course that because I was an engineer and for many, 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 many years. And it was a course that I taught called Intro to Data Communications. And it was from a gentleman named Mark Lika, and it's dated January 16th, 1991, co-signed by a guy named Ray Norda, and who was CEO of Novell at the time, and signed by me as his instructor, with a note to me that said, I was cleaning out some things and I found this certificate, wanted to send it to you. And that you inspired me in that class to start a business. And I want to tell you, I just sold the business and I'm retiring.
Wow.
And I, to your point about it is, and it really, it stopped me cold in my tracks. To see that from 1991 to yesterday, without revealing yesterday's date, that that those kinds of inspirations
Yeah.
and moments occur across the body of what we do. And I wasn't his leader, apparently whatever I taught him about data communication, I think I taught him what asynchronous technology was. I don't know. If we don't, I don't know.
I
That was
remember
back
those
when
words. I know
1200
what that
baud was
means.
fast. But
Yes, we had
yes,
punch
we
cards.
did. So, anyway,
But I love that you tell that story because, without trying to sound like I'm speaking from the mountaintop, I'm down here in the valley still trying to carve out a great life, just like
sure.
everybody listening to this today. But I know this for sure. There's going to come a moment in every life where you and I are going to say, "Did my life
Yes.
matter? Did I do something that I'm proud of? Did it
Right.
matter?" And I know this for one, because I had my own momentary experience in the back of an ambulance where I thought I had come to my last day, and then by some grace I didn't, and I'm here having on a podcast today.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for that. But I remember what it felt like to think, man, this could be it. This could be my last moment. What you're going to wish more than anything else is to be able to say, I did. Yes, I did. I did things that mattered. I made a difference. I helped the people I could. I became all that I was capable of being. You're going to wish for all that. Well, why don't we do that today? Why don't we start today, to be this leader that we wish we had, or to be the kind of friend or mentor to other people, to give away the things we fought hard to learn, just freely give those lessons away, like we're doing on this podcast, to everybody who cares enough to listen. Live our lives in that way, in a way of abundance. And as the old saying goes, cast your bread on the water and it will come back to you after many days. I think that's one of the truest things ever spoken. And that's a great model for giving yourself away into the people that you lead.
I love that, Jim. Such a good conversation, such a rich conversation.
Always.
So we're at a place where we're gonna downhill side the podcast now. We've been at this for a little while.
Yes.
But I want to early in my notes on my piece of paper right here with notes written on it. I wrote the word book, and that you're planning a book and it's coming, and you're having been an author. Now I get to stand shoulder with you, shoulder to shoulder, and say, "Yep, I've been an author. I know what you're talking about." You talk a little bit about the book, because I'm really curious about what that is and what your vision is. In addition, that the inspiration piece. What inspired? What brought you to that?
Well, thank you. Yeah, what a great way to kind of start to bring to a close one of the best conversations I can ever remember, which is always the case with you, my friend. So thank you. So first of all, I speak as a person who is living in expectation of something that is almost here, almost about to happen. But I speak very positively about it. And of course, I couldn't be doing it without the partnership of my great friend Chris McChesnney, with whom I've written all the things we've written and all the 4 disciplines of execution. But we're intrigued by a particular idea, and I'll make this short, Dolan, but I hope it'll be powerful for a lot of people. Is you might say, our book happens to be, as far as we know, the 2 best-selling books of all time on the subject of execution. Now, by the way, there aren't millions on the subject. So, but all the ones that have been written, ours is by a large margin translated into the most languages and the bestseller. So you might say, well, gosh, what else do you have to say about that subject? And we've been thinking about this a lot. Do we have anything left to say that we haven't said already? And would it be additive rather than repetitive? And it's a question all authors end up asking themselves. And so we've hooked into this one idea that is really quite compelling to me. And I'll explain it in the formative way, because this is where it exists at the moment. A year from now, it'll be highly polished, and hopefully you'll be reading or listening to it in print. But it's just simply this. We really believe there are 3 levels of effort that a leader can experience from the people they lead. One level is the level of obligation. You're committed. You perform at a certain level because it's in the job description. It's what you're supposed to do. You get paid for it. Fail to do it often enough, and you won't be in that job, nor will you get paid to do it. It's just a requirement for being in that. So one level of effort is really a level of effort everybody has experienced in some way or some point, and it's by obligation mostly. And then we've all also had the experience somewhere at some time where there was another level of effort that a team was able to give. And that level of effort probably was driven by commitment. So in other words, the first was obligation, but the second one was, hey, I'm on this team. We're committed to these goals. We know this is how things work. This is part of our contribution to the overall success of the company. So we give a little more of ourselves because we're simply committed, right? So it's better than obligation. It's commitment, and yet it's not all there is. So obligation plus commitment does not equal the full capacity of any team. There's one more band that Chris and I both believe very strongly is out there. We've seen it. We know it exists. From time to time, you witness it. You witness it on the football field, where an athlete goes far beyond their actual capabilities and does something literally amazing, flies through the air,
Yes.
whatever they do, or a team of people faces an impossible task and they're long hours and there's lots of sacrifice involved, but somehow they rally around and they just do it. They do it because they want to do it. So that level of effort, that what we might call discretionary effort. In other words, it's a level of effort that is only yours to give. You can't demand it. You can't demand discretionary effort. You can demand committed effort, and you can demand obligated effort, but you can't demand discretionary effort. Discretionary effort is a gift that the employees give you, and they give it to you when the circumstances are such that they truly believe in what we're doing, they truly believe in you as a leader, and that they feel compelled to want to do something. So it's the only part of the professional transaction between leaders and their teams that is completely optional, completely voluntary, and totally magical. Because when people get up to operating at that level, they do the extraordinary. And even more mystifying than that, they love it. They're joyful in the extraordinary. They're celebrating what they're doing. They are captured by the importance. In the words we've used already today many times, they feel they're doing something that really matters. So the question is then, as a leader, sounds great to me, Jim. How can I do that? Our greatest challenge is to be able to do what we did with execution. And the subject of execution, I don't know that it would have been possible to have a more detailed, more prescriptive, more precise, more clear to follow set of instructions for how to drive great execution than we laid out in 311 pages of those two books. This one, not so simple, because these are characteristics most leaders have spent their whole lives trying to figure out. What is the formula that lights people up in this way, so that they do the extraordinary? But we think we know what that is. So with a lot of humility and a bunch of fear and trembling, we are setting out to put down in words, what can a leader do to inspire and empower that level of response from a team, and in so doing, enable that team to actually rise to something they never would have thought possible about themselves. How do you do that? And that, my friend, is what we're setting out to put down on paper. We believe we know the answer to that, and we're excited to be able to bring that as in a way, the ultimate extension of the four disciplines, but actually a completely different topic, more spiritual than practical, and as exemplary of greatness as anything you could think of. So I hope that is a reasonable and exciting promise for a book to come in the future.
I think that would. I think that is amazing. I think that is amazing. That is the mystery. That it is the unknown territory, because to your point, there are the two domains, the two preceding domains that are fundamentally expected. They are.
Yeah, and a decade ago, we had the same challenge. People said, "Well, you can't. Can you demystify execution? Can you really? Are there really rules to execution? Can you show us the recipe? How to do it?" And in the beginning, we felt the same way. We're like, "Wow, I don't know. It's an esoteric thing." Well, we look back now on execution and we say, "Oh my gosh, that's completely mappable. We know precisely what the characteristics and techniques are of a high execution." Well, now we're setting out on a brave new territory to say, can we bring that same level of clarity and insight to a subject less pragmatic than execution? And that is the willingness to be all in, to create a team that is all in. How do you do that? That's what we're setting out to do.
I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm sure we will have opportunities to talk about progress as that goes along. So I'm very much forward looking to that. That'll be great, Jim. That's exciting. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hey, I don't know what you're going to say next, but I sure hope I get a chance to just say, first of all, I think you're a wonderful man and a great writer and a leader, exemplar of so many of the things that I'm still trying to work on and that I try to teach all the people around me. And I think you've written an incredible book, and I hope everybody gets out and gets a copy. And I hope you buy two, because as soon as you start reading it, you're going to say, I know somebody else who needs this. And you're going to wish you had bought that second or third or fourth copy. In fact, buy a box of them, because you're going to be handing them out to all the people who work with you. It's a really remarkable book. And nobody's going to feel that their time was not well invested in the reading of that book. It has value on virtually every page. So congratulations, my friend, on adding another great book to the lexicon of leadership materials and truly, in our words, making a difference in the world by what you wrote. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. It's an honor to be out there with you. So it just is. And I'm very, very honored that you took the time to pre-read it before it was on the street and not come back to me with a note that said, "What the heck are you thinking?" So that worked out well. So, on that note, we're going to call it. We're called the podcast. So and we talked about this before. I start and end the podcast with gratitude, and I want to end the podcast with gratitude for our opportunity to talk about new to AI and behavioral things, and then to go back and visit the 5 notes that I had handwritten in my notes from our podcast time together over a year ago, and for the insights. Love you, and just so appreciate your insights and your wisdom and the things that you share. So it's an honor to be out here with you, brother. So I just want to tell you, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdoms and doing it with such an open heart, so much wisdom. Just thank you. Just extend that gratitude.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, more than enough. Thank you, my friend. And as I said the last time, I sure hope I get invited back.
It'll be before episode 200. Let's make that. We'll figure that out. All right. So final thought, leaders, you hear me say this every time, but I'm gonna lean in on something today. When you listen to this, if you're listening in your car, make it a point to go home and listen again, and do it don't do it in your office. Do it someplace, but take a pad and paper with you when you go do it. And there's times that we listen to podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts because I happen to enjoy the medium, and it's entertainment. But there's a difference between entertainment and action. And the things that Jim and I talked about today are designed specifically to move you to act. We hope we entertained you. I was entertained, but hopefully it moves you to action. So do it with a pad and paper in hand and a pencil, and take some notes and go try some things. There's a lot of aha moments in this. So I challenge you leaders to do that, move from entertainment to action. If you know a leader, my mission is to empower 1 billion leaders. If you know a leader who can learn something from what Jim talked about today or what we co-shared together, share this podcast with them. It is incumbent on us to cast that bread and then share this podcast so that we are improving we don't know the timing in people's lives and what matters to them in the moment. And that may be something that you give someone something that's really important to them at that moment. So share it with them openly. The last thing is give the podcast a know, like, share, or follow. It has nothing to do with vanity numbers. It has to do with so it can be seen. It's just how it works. It requires those things. So please do, or leave a comment. And send Jim a note. Send me a note. All of our contact information will be in the show notes on every single platform that the podcast is on. So I invite you to do that. And on behalf of the Next Interview Show podcast, I'm Dolan White. I'm the host. This is out every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Join us weekly for every episode of Never Miss a Week.
Thanks for listening to this week's The Next Interview Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then take time to turn what you heard here into action.